Hello, welcome to another episode of the AW Confidential podcast. One of the things I most enjoy about doing this podcast, writing, interviewing, is how much I learn from others, from their stories. One of the biggest blessings is the ability to learn and pass it on to others in hopes to inspire, empower, and encourage. I believe it's so important to include difficult conversations on our platform. On today's episode, my guest, actress Isadora Ortega, and I will get into some tough conversation. I hope you listen today with empathy and compassion as we talk about a subject of her latest movie, which deals with abusive relationships and mental health, as seen on Another Love Story. Welcome, Isadora. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Whew. So, I watched Another Love Story. It deals with an incredibly difficult topic, which I mentioned before. Your character, is it Mimi?
Miriam.
Miriam.
Mimi is the nickname that Lily has for Miriam.
Okay. So she is the main character, and the plot revolves around how she falls in love. She literally falls head over heels. My first red flag was how fast everything happened. Now, Mark is successful, charming, passionate, generous, and he appears to be the perfect man until she realizes that he has a dark secret. Mark abuses her every time rage takes over him. So, my first question is, this is a powerful story, and I believe it happens more often than we realize. Why did you think it was important to be part of this project and tell this story? Because it is pretty powerful.
Well, the story is based on true events. My best friend from childhood was killed 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So a lot of bits and pieces from Another Love Story resembles her story. And it was important because we were all broken. It was just sad. He took her life and then took his life. And so when it happened, I started doing more research and realized that it was so common. It's a big social issue. I don't think it gets enough attention the way that it should. Um, and the more that we got to writing and doing research, even my director, he encountered a couple that was very similar to that dynamic of Miriam and Mark, where they're in public, they were super perfect, but at closed door, it was just chaos. So we just wanted to tell a story and just to let people know that there's a place and time in domestic abuse where you can leave, you can escape and still keep your life. And we know from the research that we have done that the moment that you decide to leave, that's when your life is more at risk. So, but there's so many agencies that help. And it's difficult because when we see domestic abuse, we have people that they have no type of history or experience with it. Their point of view is, why don't you just leave? But it's not that simple because there's so much manipulation, there's so much mental abuse. When you feel that you're not worthy, that you're not worthy to be loved, that this person is the best that you can do, that no one else will love you. And there's a lot of shame too. So we
And
just
I,
want, and let friends know that sometimes this, people go back, but we need to have some type of, we need to remain being friends. We need to be friends to those people in our family. I have family members that reach out to me and said, hey, I went through this and this, and I had no idea. And I said, I'm sorry for what you went through. And her answer was, you don't have to apologize because I hid it.
now it's interesting that you just mentioned something that I think is very important, something that I picked up on towards the final scene. I believe her friend said to her, "This is not your fault." Why do you think it was so key to include that?
Oh, because of the manipulation. There's just so an abuser, a narcissist, anything that they do is your fault. If they cheated, is your fault. If they hit you, is your fault. Any shortcoming, any flaw in their character is your trigger. And it never has to do with them. So I think it's so important for people to realize that this has not, it's not personal, it's not you, it's them. So that was important for us to like, as a storytelling, to let people know, hey, it's not you, it's this person has some mental issues, because it has to be mental, because no one that loves another person is going to hurt them like that.
Absolutely. You're so right. Now, let's talk a little bit about this character, Mark. He's, from the outside looking at the couple, like you said, they look perfect. He looks like the perfect guy. But personally, I saw some red flags, but I saw them because I've seen those red flags in a relationship. The first of all, going from 0 to 100, I think it was in a matter of months. Meeting his dad, the lavish gifts. He sort of went, not that there's anything wrong with gift giving, but it was almost like an outpouring of all this, you know, love, and alienating her from her friends. So those are the red flags that I saw. Do you think there are any red flags that we tend to maybe overlook, or just miss?
Well, when we did the screening, the response was someone approached us and it was just like, hey, I noticed something in the movie that I had seen before, but it never connected until now, with a couple friend of ours. And it what we would like to achieve is just to show those red flags, because it happens in our circle, it happens around, our friends and family. We're showing this little moments of, hey, you cannot go out, or no, I'm going to, basically what Mark did, he just infiltrated himself so deep in her life that no one else mattered. Like, he became the center of her universe, and that's what he wanted.
I have an interesting question for you. So, and I could be wrong, but I don't know. I think I'm touching on something. One of the things that I noticed was how he would use sex. She
Mhm.
loved him. It was very passionate, but he used that as a tool.
Mhm.
Am I am
Yeah,
I hitting on something?
it's sex is one of the most powerful drugs there is, in my opinion. Um, Feelings are involved, and the sexual chemistry is there, and it's something that people feel can alleviate anything. I hit you, then we have sex. I speak to you like you're trash, then we have sex. It kind of covers things up. And that's where the lines get very blurry. And you don't know what's what, pretty much. Because someone that loves you that much, why would that person be hurting you?
So, what would you say are, three things to look out for that are sort of telltale signs for women out there who maybe they don't realize? There's a lot of women that might not even realize that, calling you names is a sign. So, do you have anything that maybe um, they're not so obvious?
So to me, and I was working with uh, an event planner, and she's also a PI, and she works with domestic abuse. And what we learned from her is that it's domestic abuse. Domestic violence is something that is under domestic abuse. So if he is trying to block your social media, if he's trying to create chaos between you and your friends so he could just keep you away from them, away from your family, keeping your car so you don't have transportation to get by, someone that is just speaking down to you to the point of, you cannot do better than me, who's going to love you out there. That's domestic abuse. All of that is different, but it's under the same umbrella. And then domestic violence. That's the physical part of it. So people that go through, that suffer, that survive domestic abuse, basically they suffer the same effect of someone that went to war. Mentally, that's how their
Really?
brain is so in the defense and so traumatized. So imagine
So
going to war in domestic abuse. It's like the brain is damaged the same way.
unfortunately, it's not taken as seriously as this conversation. I think there's something wrong that we're, not doing enough for these women, maybe even educating them.
Women
Just
and men. Women and men.
interesting. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about?
Um, again, just having those conversations with Kat, I was able to like see how some men are also affected because she was sharing a case with me of this big strong man. It was part of the army. He was married to his wife was petite. She would literally call the police and waited until the police was almost there and then started throwing things around so they could think that it was him abusing her. You know, we had someone, a male on set, part of the crew, and he showed me videos of his partner and the things that he did to him. And it was just, I haven't seen so much blood in one video. So it happens more to women, but it happens to men too. So this notion of, I think, partnership, marriage, relationship, it seems very like ownership. And the police don't want to get involved. They will give more time in jail to someone that killed a stranger than someone that killed their own wife.
So, as not just like you said, because there are men and women. So, as human beings, as people, what do you think we should be doing? And it's interesting that you mentioned worthiness, because I truly believe that if you feel you are not enough, it just affects every part of your life. It affects the decisions you make, the relationships you get into. What do you think about that idea that we don't feel like we're enough or we're not worthy? Do you feel that strongly ties in?
I honestly think that it might be is way deeper than that, and that's why I feel like it both on both sides. When it comes to Marion and Mark, it had to do a lot with your mental. Um, how we see each other is very shaped by our experiences and the things that we have dealt with. You know, in Miriam's case, she just came out of a messed up relationship, and then she got into another one without like actually studying herself and figuring out what was it about her personally that was getting her in these situations. Like, okay, why? Like, let me just put this example. If I just came out of a toxic relationship, my job is to heal myself, to do counseling, talk to someone, sit down and have a real valid conversation. And counseling, I feel like everyone should do counseling.
I totally
It's
agree.
extremely important to talk to someone about your mental state and the things that you go through, because a friend, we talk to our friend, but they're not professionals. They don't know how the brain ticks the way that it ticks. Is knowing yourself, so in the next relationship you know how to assess things properly. I don't want to give out the movie, but there's some moment, and you saw the movie,
I thought
where Mark went from 0 to 100, and at that point she should have left. But no, there was so much love. He has so much love, and there was so much emptiness inside of her, and he was just feeding into that.
So, being that you were on this set, it sounds like, you have had the experience through a friend. Um, was there anything that you learned from doing this project?
The laws in the United States when it comes to domestic abuse are just flawed. They're old. Um,
Yeah.
they're not really protecting pretty much anyone. They're not enforced in a way that people actually have consequence. Even if you file like an order of protection against someone, they break it. They give them a pat in the back, but again, and they send them back outside, and then they send them back outside. And one of those times is when that person end up killing the other person. It's just the laws are not structured well to understand. The police officers, they don't have enough training when it comes to domestic abuse to see what's really happening. There's a hotline where you can actually call, and it's like you're ordering makeup or you're just placing an order for X, Y, and Z, and that's how they know that you need help. But there should be more help out there, because realistically, it's like you're becoming a prisoner in your own house. And it only became worse after like the pandemic.
COVID. Yeah, absolutely. So, are there any resources that you know of that you can leave us with that maybe could help a woman or a man listening and they're in trouble?
I can definitely send you some
Perfect.
websites, the hotlines for also
Great.
mental health. But that's something that I've been talking to Kat, that she works with the agency that helps with domestic abuse. And it's like starting a petition where some of these laws can be restructured. Like, how do we restructure? And it's hard because sometimes within it's like a rabbit hole. Let's just say that.
I won't get into that, but yes, I agree. There are laws that are very old and need to be changed, but it's such an overhaul that I don't know. I just don't know,
And it makes
where.
me wonder sometimes, like, because it happens, it happens to men, it happens to women, but it happens more to women. So it seems very ownership like. This person is entitled to do whatever they want to do with you.
Well, it's a patriarchal society, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The frustrations will start coming if we pursue that that conversation. But one of the things that I love to do is leave the interviews with something hopeful. May it be a quote, an affirmation, advice that you can offer anyone listening that may be in trouble right now.
We have a phrase for the movie, and it says, it could be you, it could be me. And it's just a clear understanding that this can happen to any of us. This can happen to me. This can happen to you. It depends where our mental state is at. So that's what we need to take control of. That's what we need to nurture. We need to feed our spirit with positive things. So whatever's going on and whatever type of energies or characters, behaviors come around, we are able to recognize, this is not what I deserve. This is not for me. I think that's important. When you are very clear on who you are and what you deserve, then you don't allow anything like that.
That is so true. And it's interesting that you've used the word a few times during our conversation. You mentioned mental health. And I think COVID has sort of helped us become aware of there is no shame. We all need a little help. Life is really hard. Life is difficult. And it's okay to ask for help. So I think the fact that you have mentioned mental health so many times just gives me the impression that it is important for you, and it is important for you to send that message out.
Mm-hmm. Our lead actor, Kenneth, he said, I took the role because of the fact that you guys did touch on mental health. It was just not an evil person that came out of nowhere. Not to, I wouldn't personally, I would never justify any type of behavior like that, but his mental health is what takes him to this place. So as a man, as a woman, we need to address us. Are we entitled to hurt someone? Why are we doing it? There's questions that should be asked. And he loved it. He was like, I love the fact that we're touching on someone's state of mind that is so poorly, that is like any, and we know her story because you watched the film, but he just sees these monsters everywhere.
Isadora, we can have this conversation for days and weeks. It's just it. I think anyone that listens to you or to this conversation or watches this movie will be impacted. So thank you for sharing your experience on the project and off the project. I'm really grateful, and I hope you do a lot more work that just sort of gives a voice to those that are unfortunately maybe not here to highlight what's happening. So thank you so much for sharing. And can you tell our listeners about the title? How do they find the movie? How can they find you?
My social media is LA Black Latina, La Black Latina. You can find me on all social medias under the same name. And we're going to be released on July 19th. iTunes, Amazon. I have a list. I don't know my own list. Yes, Uverse, DirecTV, Dish Network, Sling, Hoopla, Vudu, Xbox, Google Play, and YouTube movies.
Whew. And I do hope that everyone sees it because we need to have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us on another episode of the AW Confidential Podcast.